Hi everyone, and welcome back to super simple game dev tutorials for busy people. I'm late a bit because I had a bit of a week, and to be honest, I'm binge watching this anime called Solo Leveling. It's pretty cool, but it's in my sleeping time, so I'm wrecked. Anyway, let's start our 4th of May episode. Today, we'll start with some programming. I will show you how to add AI to your Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code, and we're going to write some scripts. Now, before we start, I like to do a little recap of the previous episode so we can keep building on top of that. Now, as we talked about last time, on the left side, we have projects view that lists everything in our project. And project can contain multiple scenes. These are our different levels or screens. Hierarchy and scene window show everything we have in our selected scene. All the game objects are listed in the hierarchy window and they are visible in the scene view. We can add a new game object by right-clicking the hierarchy window, 3D object, and click Cube. Now, when we select any game object, in the inspector window to the right side, you can see all of its components and properties. This is where the actual functionality is. For example, as we talked about last time, we can move the object by changing the transform component, like this. Now let's say I want this ball to circle around the cube. We can do this through scripts and programming. Now, scripts are just components that you add to your game object. So in the inspector window, on the selected game object, click Add Component, New Script. Let's name this script Circle Around State. Click Enter, and by double clicking it, it's going to open in our IDE. IDE stands for your Integrated Development Environment. This is Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code, depending on your preferences. I'm using Visual Studio because I already have it installed for other work that I do. Now, when we open this script, you can see that it already created functions start and update. Now, as it's written here, start is called once before the first execution of update after the mono behavior is created, and update is called once per frame. So to put into the perspective, the code that we write in here will run every frame, which means in some cases, if we are aiming for 60 frames per second or 30 FPS, it's going to run 30 or 40 times every second. Okay, now let's start with setting up our AI helper. We'll be using Codium. Go to their website and create a free account. After that is done, you navigate back to your IDE, click under Extensions and Manage Extensions. In the top right corner, put in Codium and install it here. After you install it, it's going to ask you to restart Visual Studio. And then after it's done, it's going to show up here under Extensions, Codium. Let's open up this chat window. Now, there are two different ways to use Codium. You can ask it to write your codes here in the chat window, or you can use the inline autocomplete right here in the editor. I prefer this way, but I will showcase both methods so that you know how it works and you can use each one depending on your preferences. Now, we want our object to circle around our target, so we need to provide what this target is. Let's start typing. Public transform target. We also need some kind of a rotation speed, so public float rotation speed. And let's set this to 10. Now, function to rotate the object around the target. And let's provide the transform target. Autocomplete should create the line, and there it is. Click Tab. Now all that's left over is to call this function in the update method. We need to double check if our target is added. So if target is different than null, rotate around the target. Now let's go back to our Unity editor, click on our ball, and you will notice now that on the script circle around state, we have public properties target and rotation speed. Let's drag cube as a target of rotation right here. Click play to see it in game view to see if it works. Ta-da! We have the ball rotating around the cube as intended. Now I think this is a little bit too slow, so let's increase the rotation speed. That looks much better. Now, important thing to remember is while the game view is on and while you're playing the game, any changes made here on the properties and components are not saved. So if you wanted to apply them, you will need to stop the game, go back to your scene view, click on ball, see rotation speed is now 10, and increase it to 30. Now when you run it again, it will be as we saved beforehand. Now let's create another script. Let's say we want this cube to be pointing towards the ball at all times. So click Add Component, create new script, and write rotate towards state. New script, and it's already attached to the cube object. Aside from being attached to the object, you'll also be able to see it in the project window. Now this looks a little bit messy, so let's fix that up a bit. Under Assets, right-click, Create, New Folder. Name this folder Scripts. And let's drag Circle Around State and rotate towards State under the Scripts folder. That way we can have it nice and organized. Okay? Double-click on the Rotate Towards State to open it up in your IDE. Let's use the other method now. Codium Chat. Let's define the public transform target, and let's ask the chat to write a function to rotate towards the target and see what it comes up with. Okay, it created some codes. Let's copy all of these. Let's copy all of these codes and let's put them here instead of update and target. Now let's see what it wrote here. It's double checking if the target exists. It's finding the target's rotation by subtracting vectors of the target, of the position of the target, and the position of the current object, then setting up the rotation of the current object to the target rotation in some period of time. You can also read the description of what it does right here in the chat window. Let's go back to our Unity editor, click on our cube, and drag the ball into the target position. Save the changes and click play. As you can see, the cube is rotating towards the ball. But I don't think the speed of it is just right. Let's make the rotation speeds the same, huh? Think that should be better. Let's do 30. Let's fix this up. Click on cube and change rotation speed to 30. Click play again. Now we can see the code's working well. To keep it nice and simple, I think this should be enough for this video. We added some AI tools to help us code, wrote a few functions, added them to GameObject, tested in the game view. In the next video, we'll start with downloading some assets and making this look like an actual game instead of just white cubes and circles. Thank you all for watching. Feel free to subscribe and comment, and I'll do my best to respond and help with any programming questions you have. Till next week, thank you for watching and keep going.